If you look at Cumberland after a football game, it's just tragic. It's just, well, in fact, actually, I have a number for you. I'm the faculty advisor to Smokies cleanup crew, and we've collected several thousand pounds of waste just over the course of a few hours, and about half of that is plastic. So it's just people, they party, they're having a good time, and I guess part of the fun is throwing that waste on the ground.
My name is Jerry Weaver. IAMS has a contract with the city of Knoxville to keep the river clean. So we patrol the Tennessee River from Forks of the River down to Sequoia Park. And that's an 11-mile section of river that we clean up each week and throughout the year. We spend most of our time picking up paper cups and plastic bottles, styrofoam and plastic. And so if it floats, we catch it in the booms that are set up around the mouth of each creek.
Geologically speaking, microplastics are kind of a new thing. Plastics came along in the 30s, 40s, 50s and really took off after that. So we've had less than 100 years of plastics in our streams, and we're seeing a major problem with them already.
Its buoyancy makes it easy to transport, so it tends to accumulate in areas like where the water slows down and it gets dropped. But typically if you go for a walk in Third Creek, in Tyson Park, or on the Tennessee River, you'll see a lot of it along the shoreline.
We spend most of our time at the mouth of the creeks catching the debris that washes down through the tributaries. And so it's relatively small what flows past on the river, but it's significant what we stop and pick up at the mouth of the creek. It's a pretty steady flow of garbage. If you're caught up, it's probably because it hasn't rained, and if it rains, the trash comes down. So it comes down pretty steady throughout the year. If the creek runs through an urban area, then it picks up a lot of debris. If you go over to Goose Creek, there's no trash coming out of Goose Creek, but there's no one putting the garbage in over there.
So plastics are just, based on their chemical composition, they're a type of polymer, which is, not to get too deep into the chemistry, but it's just repeating monomer units. So you have your base chemical structure, and that repeats over and over, and then you get your polymer. As we start to break up those bonds of the monomers, that's why plastic can continue to break and hold its same chemical characteristics and composition, because it's still that base monomer, it's just in smaller and smaller quantities. What is a microplastic? How do we define it? And typically what you see in literature right now is that any plastic piece that has either been created or degraded to 5 millimeters or less in size, that would be considered a microplastic.
As far as temperate freshwater biodiversity, this is the hot spot in the world. Certainly in North America, there are more species here than anywhere else in the country, and there are more species in single river systems in Tennessee than there are in entire countries in Europe or Asia. Well, we're working with one that has been kind of one of the original species that we worked with in the Tennessee Basin, yellowfin madtom. The first two species that Conservation Fisheries started working with were the yellowfin madtom and the smoky madtom. And they were only known from the Little Tennessee River system, Citico Creek in Tennessee, very, very narrowly distributed. Talking about the yellowfin madtom, that's one that historically occurred either in Third Creek or in the Tennessee River at the mouth of Third Creek. We have an actual record of that species in the stream. Since the habitats are similar in Second and First Creek, we can presume that they were probably also present in those streams along with the main stem of the Tennessee River. They've since been eliminated, as have a variety of other species, by a number of impacts. Probably one of the biggest impacts on all of those streams is sedimentation from development. Sedimentation is basically dirt. So anytime the surface plants are disturbed or you dig in the earth, soil can be washed in by the next rainfall. As sedimentation comes in from the land, it's probably carrying microplastics with it. As it's stirred up in the streams themselves by water flow, it's churning all that microplastic and grinding it up and releasing it back up into the water column.
We test the water in my lab, and we're finding dozens, if not hundreds, of microplastic particles in a glass of water. Another mechanism is ingestion. If you eat enough plastic, your gut will get full of plastic and you won't be able to digest food. Then you got filter feeders like freshwater mussels and clams. They ingest a lot of plastics. And plastics are not toxic, are not strongly toxic, but they do accumulate other things like heavy metals and other kinds of toxins. So they concentrate poisons.
That process is called biomagnification. The smallest organism that is in the food chain, the bottom of the food chain, is an insect or a worm or other invertebrate. And they're consuming the muck that's on the bottom of the river. And as they're consuming that, they're collecting microplastics in their body. Then along comes a darter or a mad tom and starts eating those insects. So let's say the insect has a plastic unit of 1. If that darter eats 100 insects, it accumulates a plastic unit of 100. And if a bigger fish eats 100 darters, then it magnifies again exponentially. It has 1,000 times the load that original organism that ate the microplastic had. And that can go all the way up through the food chain to birds, to even humans as we consume fish.
Yeah, so we're here at Mary Vestal Park, which is in Vestal in South Knoxville, and it's our annual South Knoxville cleanup, and it happens to be on Earth Day today. I had about 20 volunteers cleaning the creek, and it spans pretty far back, and we got a lot of things out of the creek, lots of shopping carts, tires, lots of needles, but yeah, we worked as a team and removed a lot of debris. You can see the dumpster is pretty full. Nonprofits like Keep Knoxville Beautiful, Iams Nature Center, and Keep the Tennessee River Beautiful work hard to identify areas where this type of garbage will, collect over time. So there's that. We have Adopt a Road programs. We have a campaign right now that we've began called Secure Your Loads for Cleaner Roads. So just kind of educating people and youth. Every year we educate about 4,000 youth about the harmful effects of litter and the need for low waste practices. I want people to know that everyone can do a small thing to make a difference. You can participate in the cleanup. You can organize your own cleanup. So, we have this day of cleaning, but this is just one example. These cleanups happen every day. We actually facilitate 400 or so cleanups a year. So there's a lot of groups, and it only requires one person.
Get plastic out of your life. Don't use plastic bags. Don't buy plastic bottles. Don't use plastic mugs. Don't buy polyester clothing. On and on and on. So personal behavior is critical. And obviously recycling and so on. But after past that, I would say socially get involved with campus campaigns here at UT to get rid of plastic. We've had students lobby the Aramark, the food providers here on campus. That has been really successful. And then politically, work with Keep Knox Beautiful, work with Keep Tennessee Beautiful, some of those organizations in Nashville to have more effective laws passed to maybe have a plastic bag ban, maybe have a bottle ban, maybe have more litter cleanups that are subsidized.
Try to get plastic out of your life as much as you can. That's the easiest thing for plastics. If we're not using them, they won't be produced, and we can get away from it to some extent. If you do use plastic, dispose of it properly. Plastics that can be recycled, get them back into the recycling system so they can be reused and not end up in our environment. If they need to be disposed of, if they're not recyclable, make sure they get to a landfill. Don't be throwing your empty water bottle out in the stream. Make sure it goes to a landfill where at least it can be contained and not become part of our environment.
I've heard them talk about, putting a tax on plastic bottles or making it, worth something to pick up. If it was worth something, then you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't see it on the river.
Pick up your trash. Pick it up. Don't put it in. That's it.